Good morning and welcome to Worship Connection. We are glad you are here with us. We are in doing a month or two of studying the New Age counterfeit and how it's an entrapment of Satan. And it's really important. You know, Yvette sent me a message here and said, "Hey, you got to. I'm so glad you're doing this. This is something we really need in this day and age right now." And it's really true. I've had people in church would come up to me all the time and they would say something like this: "You got to study the real. You look at a dollar bill and you know a counterfeit by knowing exactly what a dollar bill looks like." And that's so true. But it's not true to say that we're not supposed to look at the counterfeit and understand what the counterfeit is. Um, most of the people who've told me that you look at the real and you don't look at the counterfeit to study it have left the church. They've been all tricked. And that makes me really sad. So that's the purpose of this series of services right now, is so that we become wise to the ways of Satan. And it has been hard. Everything has been going wrong with the equipment and the software, and it has just been really hard. And that just makes me all the more convinced that we need to go through this together and share with each other and come to an understanding of Satan's tricks. The three angels message has two facets, right? It is preach the gospel to all the world and tell people of the deception in the world and tell them to get out. And so our message is twofold: see the pure truth of the gospel and tell people to get out of Satan's counterfeit. Okay. I'm going to ask Brad here now if he would. He's backstage with me here. If he would do our scripture and prayer as we start our church service. We're not going to separate Cafe Jesus from church. We're going to do it all straight through together today. Brad?
Joshua 24:15, and if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose you this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for who you are and being with us today. And we want your Spirit to lead us as you speak to us. And give us the thoughts that will impress us today with the message that you want us to hear. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Brad. So I have Brad here, Brad Whitson. I have my wife, Darla, with me, and we're going to do what we did last week a little bit. We're going to go through a couple more of the counterfeits of Satan. We've been doing the counterfeit New Age health things. So what have we done so far? We've done one. We've done acupuncture. Okay, it looks a little creepy, but it actually doesn't hurt, so they say. And we've done also yoga. What do these two have in common, you guys? What's something really general here, but that these two have in common? And anybody else can try to answer this as well too. Just text it in the chat, okay? Or if you're on YouTube or somewhere, just text it on the chat there, and we can see those messages. What does yoga and acupuncture have in common? And we won't linger here too long, but anybody have a guess? Brad, Darla, any comments here? They both are keys to let Satan get in you.
Yoga is definitely.
Definitely what? Go ahead.
Yoga is definitely New Age, and a way to channel Satan.
They both rely on key energy.
They both rely on key energy. They're both New Age. They're not harmless. If there's anything we want in this couple months,
they open portals. That's what they say.
Portal. That's right. These two opens the portal of Satan. Basically, it's the key that turns the button so that Satan is allowed inside the body. So these two are keys. Permission to enter, basically. So the permission on acupuncture, stick in the needle and turn it, and you've already pre-agreed to let energy come through at that time, and energy is actually Satan. So put it in a needle, give Satan permission to enter your body. Okay. Yoga, your keys, you're making a gesture with your body. It's kind of like, hi, come on in. Okay. The different gestures ask the demons to come in and do different things. Both of them are keys to unlock the body, give Satan permission before God to come in and influence your life. I don't like that. Okay. Tell me what you think this one is. Yeah. Yvette says very scary. Very true. Very, very scary. I'm hoping that as we go through this, we're going to say there's no New Age practice that we can just kind of go, well, no big deal. I can watch a New Age movie. I can do horoscopes. I can do yoga. No, they all can be um, devil's tools to hurt us. What's this one? Do you know what this one is? This one's not real. It's called.
Kinesiology?
Energy healing.
It's an energy healing. It's called Reiki.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, when I went to naturopath school, we weren't taught this one in school. We're taught just about all the new age stuff in school, but this one we weren't taught. And my classmates were going and learning it on the side somewhere. And it was hard for me to understand, was this godly or was this demonic? Because basically, and when I went to school, they were just slowly rubbing, touching the body and gently, gently just moving their hands slowly over the body. So was it a reflex, a nervous reflex for peace? But now they're basically just, okay, let me just impart energy to you. But they're doing it still real gently, as you can see here. Um, there's no, there's nothing therapeutic about this besides if the person that's giving you the treatment has the spirit, he is giving you the spirit.
Yeah. The devil doesn't mind giving you physical temporary healing as long as he gets spiritual influence over your life.
Yeah,
And so a lot of times people will get temporary healings from Reiki. And they will say that it's true because of the healing. But that's not the intention of the enemy, the physical healing. It's the spiritual influence over you.
okay. What's this one here? Look at the words, they'll give you a clue. You can try and bring it up. This is homeopathy. And we're having technical stuff here, which I fully expected for today. And I trust Jesus will get the message through no matter what game Satan plays. So Darla is sitting with me here. Come as close as you can here. Anybody want to comment on this? Is this godly or is this Satan? Satan's Satan's medicine, you bet. It's actually really, really a silly medicine. It's basically if if you look like you have a big beak nose and you're sick, then you look for like a plant, like a flower, like a snapdragon that might have a big beak nose, and you give that flower to somebody in a great dilution, and that's their medicine. So homeopathy is actually theoretically you can't make a homeopathy cure for cold like they do. Um, Not supposed to work because it's a personalized medicine depending on your shape and features and your own characteristics. But how it works is even worse. You take the medicine and you take a dropper of it and you stick it in a glass of water, kind of thing. 100 parts of water to one drop of your medicine, and then from that beaker with one drop of water and full of one drop of medicine full of water, you take another drop of that and you put it in another beaker that's full of water, and you dilute it down by 100 times 100, dilute 1 to 100, 1 to 100, 1 to 100 till there's nothing there left. And what they call it in homeopathy, there's nothing left but the spirit. Boy, is that true. Can't you believe that is true? There's nothing left but an evil spirit with that. And when they shake it, that is basically the key for homeopathy. And now that becomes an occultic object, kind of like voodoo. And you give that medicine to anybody, and it contains an evil spirit and will usually heal you very quickly. We've seen it very, very quickly 15, 20 minutes, and someone's cured. But at the risk of having their life possessed on the backside, and they don't know what to look for. Okay.
And doesn't it depend on the power of person who's creating the homeopathy medicine?
Really, 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 really good point. If the person is full of spirits, this stuff's all going to work a whole lot better. If you can say being cured by an evil spirit and getting an evil spirit in you is good. Okay, yeah. So I'll give you an example of that on the next one here. Anybody knows what this might be? This one chiropractors tend to do a lot.
That's the kinesiology muscle testing.
It's not real kinesiology, the study of muscle. This is a pseudo kinesiology, applied kinesiology, where they're trying to study the energy in your body. And that energy they're talking about is demonic energy, not your life force, not your nervous energy kind of thing. Okay? Applied kinesiology. Anybody have any question on this one? When I was in naturopath school, I remember doing a little talk. We had just been going through the power of the mind can do anything, right? And I'm going, bogus, so untrue. And I got up and did a little lecture for about 7 minutes in front of the class. And I basically quoted all the experts in the neuroscience field saying that with our mind, we're able to influence other people to do things and think things. But we also happen to influence ourselves. But that's it. We have no power beyond the influence of our words and our actions. There's no magic power beyond that. And the teacher got so upset, he came over to me and he said, stand up, and he dragged me up to the front of the class, nature class. Well, this is my friend. We were good buddies. But he was also known to have more spirits than anybody else in class. So I knew I was in for it. And he told me to put my arms out. Okay. And he did apply kinesiology, and he says, I'm going to show you the power of the mind. I'm going to make Doug's arms strong. I'm going to make them weak. And I'm going to let go and make them strong again. And he did. And I'm going, inside, I'm going, ugh, gross. He's using me for a Ouija board. I can't stand this. And he finished up. He said, okay, I'm letting him go. And I go, uh-oh. He got it backwards. He let me go to restore my normal strength. But you know what? He was actually doing everything backwards because he didn't know it. The year before, I was in an accident, dropping a tree down, and I became damaged disc, and it was awful. I would just fall over. I wasn't able to lift more than 10 pounds. So when he was saying I was strong, I was weak. When I was weak, saying I was weak, I was strong. It was actually opposite. So his mind wasn't doing any influencing of power. The spirits were basically just alternating back and forth, totally proving it was wrong. But that's applied kinesiology. These three we're looking at here, homeopathy, kinesiology, and Reiki, are all the impartation of the spirit into your body. They're pouring an evil spirit into you. That's different than the key of acupuncture and yoga above. Okay? Reiki. I'm going to ask Brad. Here's my general question, guys. Do demonic manifestations still really happen? Like we can do this, but do the demonic, like the bad results of it, actually still happen, or is that just a Bible time thing? Marla, Brad, what do you think? And again, guys, you can chat something in the text.
Well, I would say that every believer has authority over the demons. Now, it's not for our glory that we have authority over them, it's for God's glory. We're to submit to Him for the power, but we all have authority over demons. So, a couple times in my dad's ministry, my dad was a pastor. He also did a lot of public evangelism. He was a youth director for the different conferences. We moved around a lot when I was a kid. I've lived in 11 states and Canada. When I was 4 and 5 years old, we lived in a suburb of Philadelphia called Warminster. My dad was the pastor of the Bucks County Seventh-day Adventist Church. He did a public evangelism crusade there. And on the cover of his pamphlet, his little brochure, he had a picture of 3 UFOs, and he had the caption, "What are these?" And we had occultic members come out to the meetings because of that. They thought it might be an occultic meeting or something. And one of the ladies coming out, she met my dad in the office. She said she wanted to talk to him about something, and got into the office, and the demons started coming out of her. And they started speaking through her. and manifesting. And so my dad spent several months with her, delivering her from the occult and Satanism. And then 10 years later, we were living in New Orleans when I was 14 years old. And we had a similar situation. A lady actually flew down from Walla Walla. She was about 35 years old. She remembered my dad as when he was a youth director in Colorado. She was a teenager in Colorado, and she wrote a letter to my dad in New Orleans, said, "I've got some issues, and I'm coming down to New Orleans, and I'd like to meet with you." And so he said, "Okay." And she got down there and met with my dad. She also had a demonic problem, and she had nowhere to stay, so she ended up living in our house for 2 months when I was 14 in the summer. And my dad, all of us, our family, church members would come over and pray, and we worked with this lady who was demon possessed. We saw a lot of God's power and miracles. So a lot of amazing things that God did in these people. But what was reiterated to me, just very briefly, was the great controversy between good and evil is real. It's not theory. It's very real. There's a real battle between God's spirits and the evil spirits happening every day. It's not for us to be scared, but to know that it's happening. And we have a loving Father who has all the power over the evil in this world, and then we can turn to our Father anytime we want. So that's what I'd like to share with you guys today.
Question for you there, Brad. Did it increase your faith that there must be a real God if there's a real Satan? I mean, it can work backwards on them too, can it? It can make you more passionate to follow God when you see that Satan is live and doing mean things.
We're not to seek out the demonic to try to grow our faith, but if we ever come into an encounter with that, it will grow our faith. If we stay close to the Lord, our faith will grow.
Okay. I thank you. I'm so glad you shared that story. We're going to go now in the direction. Our sermon is from John Lomacang, Pastor John Lomacang. And I really like this guy because he's just like the most sincere Christian I've ever met. But he's been studying the New Age for a long time. But just before we get to his sermon, that will be the next thing here. I'm going to ask you both here, and again, anybody on the chat. The sermon is about media and how Satan is using media to get a hold of us, to trap us, to hook us, to control us. Do any of you have an experience with anybody that was in media and was influenced by Satan that you're sure of? Or Satan was trying to set up somebody for media with him being in control?
Well, I had somebody very close to me call me one night. She had been reading a book about God setting the captives free, and she renounced a lot of what she had been involved in, and was really coming to a peace. And suddenly, this beautiful being appeared in front of her and offered her fame and fortune. Unknown caller. We were to follow him. And she recognized immediately that this was not a glorious being, but this was a demonic being. And so she commanded him to leave. She told him no. She was going to follow Jesus. And he turned into this most ugly being. And he said, "You will have nothing. You will be nothing. You are turning your back on fame and fortune, and for what?" And she just told him to leave in the name of Jesus, and he did. He had to. And she called me and prayed with me, and we renounced the curse that he had put on her. And of course, her life, she wasn't in fame and fortune, but she has a very nice life, and she's not destitute. And so that curse did not come true.
Wow. We hear stories on the internet like that, but you know someone that happened to, right? Yeah. I actually do too. It's been a long time ago. It was back in Walla Walla. There was a classmate of mine. He was playing his guitar all the time all over campus, and all he would sing was religious music. So I went up and talked to him, and we were having this private talk together, and he told me a story that the Spirit appeared to him and said, I will give you fame and fortune if you let me work through you in the music industry. Same thing? But the demon asked for a blood. This is best I can remember it now after all these years. But the demon asked for a blood covenant, and so he had to prick his finger and somehow give blood to this contract. And then shortly after that, he chickened out. He goes, "What am I doing? I don't want anything to do with it." And he backed out. And he had a really rough time backing out of a contract with Satan. But when he did, he lived absolutely everything for Jesus. He wasn't interested in any music anymore except for music for Jesus. And that's why he was always playing on his guitar and singing praises about God. It made me appreciate him like way more. What guts. So here we see that Satan's actually going around and picking people to get into the media industry, not just taking famous people, but he's growing people. He's making the industry happen. Just think about that for a minute. Satan is directing how media comes out and where it's in the direction it's going and what it's containing. Wow.
So he can influence the minds of everybody.
He can influence the minds. Music tends to get into the brain separate from the conscience front of the brain where we make all the choices and stuff. Music kind of just slips in behind. So Satan loves using music. So let's watch now the sermon by John Lomacang. And it should mean more after these stories.
The battle between good and evil is a perpetual conflict. It encompasses every facet of the human experience. In today's episode, we unveil a variety of methods that the enemy uses to deceive. Our guest, Pastor John Lomacang, produced an incredible series titled Unclean Spirits that unmasks the occult and entertainment industry. He's here to give us insights on that series. Welcome, Pastor Lomacang.
Thank you so much, Blessing. It's good to be here today.
So I remember seeing the series, and it's really a great series, but too long to present today. But today we're going to encapsulate it and deliver the most important parts. Let's start with this theory that Satan is the force behind the music industry.
And the question is, how did that meeting take place? You know, there's a gentleman by the name of, well, using the word gentleman is probably a misplaced word, a very well-known man by the name of Aleister Crowley, he's deceased now, who became known as the father of modern occultism. And his determination, being raised by a Christian father, when his father passed away, he said he was determined to resist and to try to obliterate everything connected to Christianity. Matter of fact, he even offered himself to a foreign power to destroy in their country every facet of Christianity. And he wrote a book. It's called a Bible, but it's called the Book of the Law, Liber Alber Legis in Latin, meaning the Book of the Law. And the theme of the Book of the Law is do what thou wilt. This is a terminology many years ago when I was a disc jockey for the world, partying. There was a group called the Isley Brothers, and there was a song called Do What You Want to Do.
It's your thing.
It's your thing, do what you want to do. And so many artists insert that kind of philosophy in their songs. We just want to have fun. And in other words, the air of irresponsibility it's my life. I want to do whatever I want to do.
Follow your heart.
Follow your heart. You set your goal. Nobody should prevent you from accomplishing or pursuing your own desires. And so with the phrase, do what thou wilt, that became a phrase adopted by the modern hip-hop world. Many cultures before that, matter of fact, the Beatles were known as the early disciples of Aleister Crowley. They inserted his philosophies in many of their songs. If you listen to their songs, you would see the song Imagine there is no heaven, no hell below us, nothing to live or die for. And then they says, imagine all the people living for today.
Correct.
And then we hope you join us and the world will be as one. Well, Jesus prayed about oneness, but not in the world, oneness with him and the Father. But the philosophy of Aleister Crowley, or the religion called Thelema, simply translated meaning will in the Greek. And so this was adopted by the modern hip-hop world, and Jay-Z, there was a picture taken once of him sporting a jersey, a hoodie, with the phrase on the front, do what thou wilt. And the occult world, the hip-hop world, the rock world, the entertainment world have all used the Book of the Law, written by Aleister Crowley, as their Bible. And even J.K. Rowling, you know her with the Harry Potter series in England, she has been known to take many of the excerpts called the Book of Lies, also written by Aleister Crowley, the father of modern occultism. So Satan used someone who wanted to be an agent, a disciple for the Prince of Darkness, and he says, I wanted to be Satan's chief of staff. And that is the method by which the entertainment industry has become very successful, implementing satanic principles through one who made himself a disciple of darkness.
So let's uncover some of the Masonic and occult religion that they're utilizing in these industries.
Well, you have symbolisms. Now, when you use the word Masonic or occult, there's no separation. It determines how you approach your goal. What do you use to get to your desired level?
Yeah.
You know, they talk about different levels, 33rd degree, where there's really only 3 degrees. And when you look at Masonic temples, they're built in 3 levels. But in the dark side of that, when you get to the highest point, there's Masonic art where they have the checkerboard floor. Well, you look at a lot of videos. They have the checkerboard floor, the white and the black, symbolizing a presence of good and a presence of evil.
Wow.
Don't get rid of either one.
Think about the
Just
symbology.
combine the two.
Yeah.
The yin and the yang, a presence of good and a presence of evil. So when you talk about occultism, Eastern mysticism, anything that's dark, they merge good and evil together. And what did Satan say to Eve in the garden? Your eyes will be opened, and you shall know good and evil. Was never God's intention for us to know good and evil. So look at those videos. You see the black and the white floor, the black and the white outfits, all a silent confirmation that I'm connected to the occult world as well as the Masonic world.
So in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, but usually if there's a religion, there's a temple. There's a place where there are worship, centers happening. So do they have these?
Is an amazing, the answer is going to be amazing. A lot of people that go to concerts are going to the temples of worship.
How so?
Well, when Jay-Z had a concert, and there's a picture that I have of Jay-Z reaching out to his audience, he's using the symbol, the triangle. There is a false trinity. We have the true Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Revelation talks about 3 unclean spirits coming out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, out of the mouth of the false prophet. That's the false Trinity.
I never connected that.
And so connecting all 3 sides together, it is a very prevalent symbol used in the occult world. And once you recognize that, you'll begin to see it everywhere. As a matter of fact, even in our town here in Thompsonville and West Frankfort, when you come into the town and you see the sign welcoming you to town, you see a triangle with an eye in the center, which is a symbol of the all-seeing eye in the occult world. So the concert hall, though, is the place of worship for the Prince of Darkness. That's why there are many people that have gone to concerts and many days later have said, I don't remember what happened that night. The stage is really the altar. And the person on the stage is the disciple. As I stand on the stage to be a disciple of Christ,
Correct.
They stand on the stage to be a disciple of the Prince of Darkness. People that are converted to Christ become followers. People that are followers of the Prince of Darkness become what they called fans, which is in fact a fanatic. It's a short word for a fanatic. They are so in love with the Prince of Darkness that they idolize the person who is the visible representation, which is often the movie stars, the music producers. And that's why you see many of these individuals go in and out of disguises in different costumes, keeping their followers, as it were, inoculated or intoxicated or seduced or intrigued, wanting so much to become like them, yet never becoming like them. It's a pursuit of darkness.
So let's go back to the idolatry that's involved. I mean, many people would say that maybe we're digging too deep, we're thinking too far into it, and that it's just music and that the lyrics are benign. Let's unplug that. Like, tell me, how is this really an affirmation of one, satanic presence, and how does it indoctrinate people who are just listening to it?
Some of the most innocuous songs, many years ago, a man by the name of Barry Manilow, he sang a song, but he didn't write it. It was called I Write the Songs. And I remember talking about the lyrics in that song, and not until you listen to the lyrics, matter of fact, in following the history of that, Barry Manilow was very hesitant to sing the song, but the writer of the song convinced him, and it became one of his top selling songs. I mean, millions of songs, millions of that song have been sold. But if you listen to the lyrics, it's clear that that was born in the heart of the deceiver, Lucifer himself. It says, I've been alive forever, and I wrote the very first song. I put the words and the melody together. I am music, and I write the songs. Second verse, my hold lies deep within you, and I have my own place in your soul. And when I look out through your eyes, I am young again, even though I'm very old. I write the songs that make the whole world sing. I write the songs of love and special things. I write the songs that make the young girls cry. I write the songs, I write the songs. Then it says, music fills your heart. It's a really fine place to start. It's from me to you, it's from you to me. It's a worldwide symphony. And when you look at the lyrics, I left some of that out, but it says, you begin to see, wait a minute. The guy that wrote that has not been alive forever. The guy that wrote that was not the one who wrote the very first song. And Lucifer, one of his gifts, he was a master musician. And so Satan's gift, now distorted, has been inserted into an industry that uses the gift of music. That's why we have to be very careful, even in the Christian world, and not to adopt the styles of music that identify us with music that's used to seduce those in the world. It's a very fine line.
So what I'm hearing you say is that music is in fact worship.
It is in fact worship. Matter of fact, first God used it for worship. You find in Revelation 4 and 5, the angels 24/7 are praising God. You are worthy to be worshipped, to receive glory and honor and riches and wisdom and power and glory and blessings. And this is a worship. The Lord inhabits the praise of his people. Let everything that has breath praise the Lord. Sing to the Lord a new song. And so you find this is another tool belonging to God that Satan has used as an instrument to use to seduce and lead man to destruction. And why not? Because he declared in Isaiah 14:14, I will be like the Most High.
He did indeed.
And what better way to be like the Most High than to take what the Most High created and distort it and twist it, not for salvation, but for destruction.
And this is often the trap that we all find ourselves in. We have gifts, and we end up using them for the enemy. And it's not until we are justified, sanctified by the Word that we then realize these gifts are really meant to glorify one God, the true God.
That's right. And there are a lot of people that are very skilled. You know, a lot of people when somebody says you sing well, well, that's a recognition of your talent.
Correct.
It's not until that talent is given to the Lord that it becomes a spiritual gift. And so when we idolize those with great talent, that's where the idolization comes in, American Idol.
Well, a lot of people are very infatuated with, like Beyonce. She has a beehive.
Yes.
You know, people will tear you apart if you say anything negative about her. There's a lot of speculation of whether or not she's in the occult. Have you found evidence that points toward that being true?
Matter of fact, in her own testimony, she had a documentary where she talked about her alter ego, Sasha Fierce, where she says this was something that she could not accomplish. Sasha Fierce infills her or endows her with a power that she does not naturally have. And there's a video in her own words where she talks about that. Let's look at that video.
Sure.
Many years ago, I named my alter ego Sasha, and it's something that stuck. So when I was trying to decide the title of my album, I realized it had two different sounds. One represented who I really am, and one sounded like my alter ego. So I decided to split it into two because I feel like Sasha is a big treat for my fans. It's definitely exciting being able to have an excuse to be so over the top. And I think you definitely hear the difference. I try to keep Sasha on the stage. I absolutely keep Sasha on the stage, and now she has a last name. She's Sasha Fierce.
When I performed Crazy in Love at the BET Awards, it was almost like my coming out. Sasha is my alter ego. When they meet me and they speak with me, they're expecting Sasha. I'm really kind of shy, and not really shy, but more reserved, and nothing like Sasha. She can do things that I cannot do when I'm in rehearsal. I mean, I can try, but then it just doesn't happen. I can sing notes and sing strong and do all these things that when I'm just by myself, I can't do. And I remember right before I performed, I raised my hands up, and it was kind of the first time I felt something else come into me, and I knew that was gonna be my coming out night.
A very clear confession.
Very clear confession. As a matter of fact, Katy Perry also talks about it. We don't have the video on that, but Katy Perry talks about she always wanted to sing like Amy Grant. She was raised in a Christian home. She said, I made many attempts, I couldn't do it. So at age 15, she says, at age 15, I decided that I'm not going to go the Christian route. And quote, so I sold my soul to the devil. And so when you think of these artists, these are not forced confessions.
No.
Simply they're declaring where their fame comes from. People might get perturbed at the idea that I mentioned this next person's name. Now, I'll just lay the foundation before I mention the name. Can you possibly imagine how you can successfully get a venue in the city of sin, Las Vegas, for 5 years? Every night, you're going to be performing in the city of sin for 5 years. Untold wealth.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't just get that kind of venue in the city of sin, and I speak of none other than Celine Dion. Some
She
people
writes
might,
nothing but love songs, and how is that possible?
here's the key. The devil doesn't care what avenue he uses. You know, Danny Shelton often says this, and I love this phrase. He says, he doesn't care what side of the boat you fall out of, as long as you fall out of the boat. And so, in the Garden of Eden, Satan was covert. He was more subtle than any beast of the field. But we're living in the days of the third temptation of Christ. Now, what I mean by that is the first two temptations in the wilderness were cloaked. He didn't reveal himself, but in the third temptation, he revealed himself. So we're no longer living in the age where sin is hidden. I mean, it's in your face.
It's pretty overt. It's in everything.
It's in everything.
Food labels.
Everything.
Music.
And once you see it, you can't miss it.
Right.
Once you begin to understand the ideology and the symbolism and the things that are used, and the language, the covering of one eye over the other, the use of the Baphomet symbol. Even today, you find in the world now, very pushed today, the blending of sexes, where a man wants to be a woman wants to be man, and now the world says you can be any gender you want.
So we saw this also within the Hindu religion. The Lord Shiva was half male, half female, androgynous. And we see the same in Baphomet.
Exactly. So the symbolism is used in all occult facets.
Regardless of culture or location.
And then it's pushed. What's amazing today, it's packaged so that people that don't expect it are drawn in by it. That's why I said when I did the series, your eyes will be opened, not to know good and evil, but to be able to distinguish between good and evil. And also the emotions behind it. There are people that have been seduced by the music to do what they never thought they would do. Well, where do you think that spirit comes from? that spirit comes from a power that's within it. A number of years ago, when I did the series, I was contacted by someone in the entertainment industry, and he revealed something to me that I had known, and I talked about it in Unclean Spirits, the second series, where when a CD is produced or a DVD is produced, witches and warlocks, they gather around that CD before it's mastered, and they pray that wherever that DVD or that CD goes, an evil spirit follows it.
And even some of the records that have already been released, they'll pull them back and they'll remaster them.
Yes.
And I just thought this was like a digital process, something they were doing to clean the sound up. But I discovered this is actually when they do a seance and they bless it in the name of Satan and they re-release it to woo more fans.
And you wonder sometimes, why is my home so turbulent? And you find your child sequestered in his or her room, and they're being inoculated. They're being literally intravenously fed. You know, when the introduction of earbuds came out, or there was a time everybody heard the music, but you could be sitting right next to your daughter or son and hear nothing. They're being intravenously fed, and music opens an avenue in your soul that doesn't have to say, should I let this in? It passes the senses. It opens the door, and what comes in after that becomes the point of conditioning. So you'll find children saying certain things, and you say, where'd you get that from? We don't talk like that in this family.
Right.
Well, you could trace it to their favorite artists. You could trace it to the music that they're listening to. So nowadays, when a parent says, go to your room, that's exactly where they want to go.
Yeah.
Go to the room. And so then also there's the symbolism of, in the occult world, the Mason world, as well as the occult world, has the symbol of the third eye. There's a picture of Prince with a pair of sunglasses on. He has on a pair of sunglasses with 3 eyes. And then the all-seeing eye
Is covered.
This illumination. And so illumination connecting Illuminati. It's this extended branch of control in the music industry. And
So could we say that by listening to their music that we could see the occult influence, or are they giving us signs in their photography, in their videos? Like how do we discern?
if you look at many of the album covers, and I did this in my second series, I keep referring to that, but you find that the left eye is always left clear. For example, some artists go like this, you know, Lionel Richie, Lady
Lionel.
Gaga. Yeah, not
Whoa.
Lady Gaga. Here's a picture of Lady Gaga covering one eye intentionally, having the other eye. You go all the way back to Adele, Kanye West,
David Bowie,
Adele.
Shocker.
The list goes on, and then you have the phrase of the distortion of a title linked to God alone. He says, I am the resurrection and the life. I am the first and the last. Well, some young people don't hear the phrase I am until they first hear it in the music and entertainment industry. For example, Will I Am.
Correct.
Which the Black Eyed Peas. And then you find, if you look in those CDs, maybe some people have it in their own homes. Nowadays, it's all digital on their devices. But if you look at your CDs, or just take a trip to the store and look at some of those CDs, you'll find on more places than not the phrase I am. Well, why do they use that? Because Satan wants to take away the significance of the real I am and connect it to his world, a dark world.
So what do you recommend here?
Well, the key is being a disciple of Christ. You know, the Lord made a statement in Matthew 24:14, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world as a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. And then Jesus says, if anyone desires to be my disciple, let him come after me, deny himself, and take up his cross and follow me. The devil uses the very same phrase, disciples. I have a picture of some of the disciples that I've amassed in my series. These are the people that are very popular artists. You go from Beyonce to Jay-Z to Adele to Kanye West to, I think I said Adele, but you can notice the names that are there. Nicki Minaj.
Well, with Kanye, he seems to have turned the leaf, so to speak.
Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, he has a picture where he calls himself Jesus and refers to himself as, at least Jay-Z, Jehovah.
Correct.
And there was also one of the very popular magazine covers where Kanye West was pictured wearing a crown of thorns, mimicking the crucifixion of Christ, the divinity of Christ. But many young people that don't read the Bible, that don't have any Christ or Christianity in their lives, their first introduction to those phrases is in the entertainment industry, in the movie industry, in the music industry.
Video games as well.
Video games. It's prevalent everywhere. And if your eyes are not trained to see it, then you won't see it. But once you see it and your eyes are open, you cannot miss it. And that's what's missing in the world today. So when you go all the way back to the modern prophet of occultism, Aleister Crowley, he has a book called the Book of the Law, but God has a book. And so depending on which book becomes the shaping component of your life will determine what you see or what you miss.
So you're saying by participating in these things that we become blinded?
Oh, yeah. We become blinded because our eyes have not been opened spiritually. You know, Revelation chapter 3 talks about even the church in the last days. He says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and open the door, I will come in to him and sup with him and he with me. Then he diagnoses the condition. They don't know that they're wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and naked. And the Apostle Paul says, the God of this world has blinded their eyes. So a lot of people, they don't want to hear religious things or even consider the things of Christianity because their eyes are open in a different direction. And so Satan's job is to keep you distracted. And why the left? Because in the Bible you find when we are blessed, he says, Jesus went and sat down at the right hand of the Father. The right hand is the place of divinity. When you overcome, you'll sit down with me on my throne on the right hand. Yeah. The sheep are called the right hand. The goats are on the left. And the goat is a symbol also used in the occult world. A Lady Gaga once had on an outfit where she had the goat horns, which is a part of the whole Baphomet symbol, the goat horns. So while we think people are saying, hey, how you doing? No, in fact, they're flashing the symbol of their allegiance and the power that has given them the fame and fortune that they have.
So the secrets that Aleister Crowley garnered, he's then given them over to these disciples. What are they doing with it? I mean, what's the end goal?
You know, when we talk about disciples and how it correlates and compares to disciples of Christ, I want to start with Revelation 16 because this is very significant to understand the power behind it. You know, the Lord calls us to be his disciples, and we champion a cause for righteousness. Satan calls his followers to be disciples, and they champion a cause for darkness, for destruction. And in both powers, we're not wrestling against 15 different powers. We are wrestling between light and darkness, good and evil. And so as I read Revelation 16:13, it gives us insight into what's really taking place behind the scenes. Revelation 16:13, and I saw 3 unclean spirits, like I referred to earlier, the false trinity, out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, out of the mouth of the false prophet. What's the power behind them? Verse 14, for they are the spirits of demons performing signs, which go out to the kings of the earth and of the whole world to gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty. So this final battle is not going to be against China or Russia in some valley somewhere in the Middle East. It is a battle between light and darkness, good and evil, truth and error. And the initial claim, I talked about a moment ago, Satan said, I will be like the Most High. But he knows he has a short time, Revelation 12:12. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil has come down unto you having great wrath, because he knows he has a short time. So he has taken this kamikaze spirit. There was a time that much of what we talked about was hidden, but it's in plain sight. It's no longer overt, it's now right. It's no longer covert, it's now overt, it's right before us. We see it all. And the way men are being treated, the way women are being treated, the confusion, the dysphoria, the gender, what's that phrase? Gender dysphoria. People not knowing or not even identifying, or very well intelligent people not admitting what God created, but giving descent, and I say descent because they're lowering the standard, acknowledging something that there's a power behind them that is not godly. So our world is not here by coincidence. Jeremiah says, we sowed the wind, now we're reaping the whirlwind. You can't sow darkness and expect light. You can't sow error and expect truth.
What did you think of that? Comments? Did his sermon and the examples he gave illustrate that Satan actually is deeply involved in the music scene?
very clearly.
Aren't these people that he showed a picture of 6, 7 people? Aren't they kind of the same kind of people that Darla and I were talking about, our friends? But they went all the way with Satan and made the pact. And this is the result. I don't think I would feel satisfied knowing that somebody else is mesmerizing the world so that they like me. It's not natural. But wow, does it show Satan's power there? Any comments, Brad or Darla? People on
It
online?
just makes me feel like the verse, my people die for lack of knowledge, kind of related to this stuff. You know, the new age healing, music industry, media. We need to be educated. We need to understand so we don't die of lack of knowledge.
Texting, amazing how sad. She's been texting a lot here to church today. So you know that she's experienced this kind of stuff too. Any, all of us have basically gone through it, and you'll know that someone has gone through it. They have a deep, deep appreciation for who Jesus is and what He's doing for us. Yvette will be sharing her testimony in a few weeks as well. Okay, I I want you to look at it in a certain way. Remember, homeopathy, Reiki, applied kinesiology are a way for Satan to pour his spirit into us. The homeopathy is different in that Satan can pour it long distance. He can give an occultic object to send it somewhere else, and that person can pick up the spirit. Okay? Now, I want you to think of this, because this is actually how it works. Satan uses music as like homeopathy. He puts his spirit into the music, and when it comes out on the other side, he's able to put his spirit into you. Let me give you 2 examples, okay? And then we're going to have a testimony, a wonderful, sincere testimony, and a song. But here's the story. I had a group of young boys that were having troubles in life, kind of troubled kids. And we were hanging out together and doing stuff. And I sat down with them and we were just talking. And I said, I want you to bring, they told me all the things going on in their life, and it wasn't pretty. And he says, guys, I want you to bring your music. Bring all your music next week, next time we get together, and let's just look at it. And they did. They brought all kinds of CDs and stuff. We started reading the words of all the songs. And every single young person there, their music was Satan speaking to people. Not every single song, but every one of them had more than one song or singer that was Satan in direct communication with the kids. And I said, okay, guys, you see this? Yeah, that's awful. Never saw it before. Can't believe it. And I challenged them and I says, it's all or nothing. You choose God or you choose Satan. There's nothing in between. I'm challenging you now to throw away this music and the demon influence with it. Because it comes with evil spirits. The next time we got together, all the kids threw out the music. That's a lot of money. Big collection, big hole in their life there. But was it? Oh no, there's a hole that we can't fill. They were saying how much better they're not having troubles with in the relationships. They're not angry all the time. They're not doing the stuff that's getting them in trouble. Their lives were changed. So
Yeah.
again, music is used as Satan as a cultic object like a voodoo doll to put a curse somewhere else and actually live in that person's life through the music. Let me give you another one as well. Um, my wife and I like this actress, and we were just sitting around, and we happened to notice a B-rated movie, one that never gets to the theater. And we watched the movie, so there's something not cool about this. We're not going to watch. We're going to quit. We both made a pact to do that. And the movie actually had a good moral to it, but it had occultism in it. So we thought, well, the good moral of it, this is a good lesson. We got to the end of the movie, and poof, really hard, right in our face. It hit us inside the brain hard enough that we fell backwards in our in where we were sitting, like we were both hit really hard by an evil spirit. Um, You know what we did next? We were on our knees so fast and saying, God, we are not we're assuming this stuff is not harmful, and it is, and we apologize deeply to God for what happened. True story, guys. Learn from my mistakes, okay? Um, our testimony is quite a long testimony. We've had a pretty short sermon here, but the testimony is it's about a lady who listened to some Christians that were in occultism. She figured, well, they're in Christianity, so it's got to be okay. And it isn't. Just because a Christian is doing something, okay, or performing something, and you say, well, if they do it, it's okay for me, it could come out with a disastrous ending. So watch this. This is a story, a personal story of Chris. I'm trying to find her. Right there we go.
Hi, my name is Chris, and I wanted to share with you. I recently became a born again Christian in June of 2023, and the way that I got there was a long, arduous journey that led me to a horrifying spiritual experience that ultimately God saved me from. And I have shared this with a lot of close friends, some not so close, some colleagues, and I wanted to now share it with other people. And the primary reason that I want to share this is because I want to warn people about the dangers of engaging in the occult, and also share the loving, redemptive power of our Lord Jesus Christ. So it's a twofold story. It's about a horrifying experience, one which I still, when I think about, I can't even believe happened to me. It really was like a horror movie. And then on the flip side, this beautiful story of a love that is so hard to explain. It really, I don't have the words to describe the loving, redemptive power of Jesus and what he saved me from, the work that he's done in me as a person, and the way that he's healed me in the last 6 months after a lifetime of striving. So I wrote this down. Some of it I've posted before, but I'm going to add to it because I left some of the details out. I kind of called this the moment that everything changed, because there was a moment in this journey where it was a fork in the road, a very scary fork in the road. And in that moment, everything changed. So I'm just going to read this now. After being saved, everything changed. My life suddenly began operating under a new framework. It was very apparent that God had taken the wheel and was firmly in the driver's seat of my life. Because we walk by faith and not by sight, this radical transfer of power can be hard to put into words, but the proof is in the change that occurs in born-again Christians. I had years of striving under my belt, and at 51 years of age, step into the biggest pit of hell a person could ever imagine. And when I say hell, I literally mean hell. I had strayed so far from God's commandments, my sinning and disobedience created a separation from him and an inability to discern right from wrong. I started engaging in astrology, Kundalini yoga, chakra, and energy healing. This started off as feeling good, but quickly turned into a horrifying experience. All of it started with, just throughout the years, a couple times, we with friends, we'd stop and we'd do, let's do a reading, a palm reading. And then it was an astrology reading, and the information that I received in this reading was just incredible. These were things you couldn't possibly know about. Nothing you could look up on the internet. This is how your relationship with your mother is going to be, and these are the things you will struggle with. And I very much felt like, wow, this is incredible. It was like, how could they know these things? So anyway, I started studying it, and in that world, there's a lot of, things are mixed in together. If you're doing that, then there's tarot readings, and there's using crystals for healing, and Kundalini yoga, and a variety of different things. And all of those things had this, sense of like a healing. It felt good for a while. And it wasn't anything that particularly lasted. It was sort of like this need to go back and go back and go back. And sort of the whole situation culminated with me. I had a session with a medium that was known by people in my circle. It's kind of like this thing where you people know each other, you get to know people in this new age world. And I had heard that people had received a lot of healing from, meeting with this particular medium. And I had lost my grandmother. So I thought, well, I want to know, that my grandma's in heaven. Needless to say, I had a session with this person in January 2023. She basically planted some seeds that she had a message for me. The crazy thing about this was that she told me she was a Christian. She walked with Jesus. And I believe this. And the reason I believe this is because growing up, I had a little bit of church. But when I was 13, 14 years old, my family had a separation from the church because of corruption in the church. They basically wanted money from my family, or they weren't going to confirm me. And so consequently, we stopped going to church other than weddings and funerals. And what that meant for me was I didn't know scripture. I didn't really have a foundation for church. I tried a few times as an adult and just never really quite found my way. So I didn't know the Bible. I considered myself a Christian. I believed that Jesus Christ died for our sins. I believed in him, and I fully believed in him. I considered myself a Christian. I just didn't know scripture, and I wasn't going to church due to this corruption that had occurred, and it was just really hard to get over. So anyway, when this medium had told me that she had a message from Jesus and that she was a Christian, I believed her, and I thought, well, okay, this is great. And the things that she told me about my deceased family members were very personal. It was, things that my grandma used to say to my grandpa, nicknames she would call him. And so it was very personal, so I believed this. And so when she had told me she had a message from Jesus, I believed her. And no one really in my circle knew any different. They just, people were engaging in these things, yoga and crystals and astrology and energy healing. And it was sort of just like going to the chiropractor. It's just like these things you do that help you feel better. I did know that some Christians didn't like astrology, but I didn't know why, and I didn't look into it. Because, quite honestly, I just thought, well, I knew better, and this was such accurate information, why would I need to check into it? Well, I learned the hard way why you need to look into it. So basically, this medium ended up telling me, planting a seed. She basically said that Jesus said, you've done what you were supposed to do here. You've done everything that you were sent to do. And I had been suffering from tachycardia from COVID. And when she said that to me, she said, well, just have fun. That's what he wants you to do. And I thought, am I going to die? Like, it was just this weird thing. And then proceeds to tell me that an ex-boyfriend of mine who had passed away, who was a very nice gentleman, was watching over me and was going to pick me up in heaven. So anyway, months go by. I don't really think anything of it. I was kind of weirded out by that, but I just thought, okay. I ended up several months later having I had an issue with my cat. He pees and poops on things, and had exhausted all the different options of trying to, get this problem solved. And a friend suggested, well, you're in Sedona, why don't you see a pet psych? And I thought, oh, you're kidding, does it come to this? But I did it. It was $50, so I thought, why not? And again, I didn't know the Bible that this was against what God says to do. So I did it. She tells me the same thing. She gives me the same message, that it was really about this old boyfriend, that he was with me all the time, watching over me. Anyway, to make a long story short, at that point, I was married. My husband and I had suffered 10 years prior. There was infidelity in our marriage, and there was a wound there. And I was a very wounded person. My husband is an excellent person. We're just human. And I was very wounded. I was also very wounded from just childhood and lifetime experiences. So I basically, started to think more when this second person had told me about this person, and she kind of said the same thing. And then basically I went back to the first medium, and I was curious about why this person was watching me. What was this all about? And she told me this could be all the things, that he was waiting for me. He was going to pick me up. Again, just reiterating the story, but adding a lot more detail to it. Well, after that, I started to believe this. She very much emulated his personality. And it was not too long after that, I started to feel things on my body. I started feeling someone touching me that I couldn't see. It was like this overwhelming experience. And I would be in my car, and the songs would just start playing from back then. I started having visions of things. I was feeling things on my body. I was being, it was just like this very physical experience. And I asked her, I said, why is this happening to me? I mean, I'm feeling things on my body. This is not normal. And, I grew up in a very conservative town, wasn't, into anything really fringe, and, just never really fell for a lot of, I don't know, I guess I considered myself a grounded person. But I said, when you said that Jesus said, I've done everything, I said, am I going to die? And basically she said she would look in, from an astrological standpoint and tell me what she thought. And she came back with some dates, and she told me, she said, my hand is going cold. And basically what that means is your body is already going cold. And that's when some of the experiences, I started feeling very sick. I started having even more of these body experiences where things were touching me. I felt ill. And I had, colleagues, friends of people that were also involved in this world, and, even friends that weren't. And they started to, believe this as well. And there were messages that the medium was giving me that, also friends that had seen her were giving me. And it just became this, like, I don't even know how to explain it, where it was just, we believed it. And I was feeling terrible. I was feeling sick. I decided at that point, like, I'm going to die. This is really happening. And my friends that were involved in this, they believed it. They thought, yep, you're going to die. I mean, it was this conversation. I had wanted to die. It was like some kind of weird thing had taken over. And I believed this. And, a friend, and, there was just this, I don't know how to explain it. It was some kind of like, I don't know how to explain it, but we were believing it. And basically I had my friends come here. I thought, I started the process of divorce with my husband. There were issues there. But this was really the impetus for that is, it really, this medium really played into my husband's infidelity, and, that I was going to be dying and that I was going to heaven. And it sounds ridiculous to think that I would really think that I was going to die because someone told me that. But this is the power of this, when you get sucked into this. And it wasn't just me. I had other people, believing this. And, sending me messages, and, oh, there's a song, I'm supposed to give this to you. And it just became this bizarre thing. And I would told some of my family members, not about the dying part, but about this other person that's in heaven. And they would say to me, he's been on my mind lately. That's really weird. And so it was just a strange thing. So I come back to Minnesota. I think I'm going to die, which is totally ridiculous now that I'm out of this. And my pet sitter, who is from Minnesota, she tells me, I've known her for maybe 7 years. She's, watched my cat and our dog. And she tells me, I can connect with animals. And there's something I want to tell you. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. And she tells me the same thing. Like, this guy, this man is around me, and and I knew that there was something there. I was feeling things in my body, and it's hard to explain. I would just be in the kitchen, wiping out the counter, and I would just feel this energy around me, touching me, and just this, like, my body would light up. It was hard to describe. And so I had, as I said, I had friends come visit me, and, we were decided, well, we should plan my funeral. I mean, this is how ridiculous this got. And when we were sitting at the table, there was no water on the table, just kind of discussing, like, well, if this is really going to happen, what do you want it done with this or that? And all of a sudden, we were talking with the medium on the phone, and she's talking about, well, people are starting to gather in heaven, and there's tears from heaven, and water started coming out of my body. And this was witnessed. There was no water on the table, and it was just water. And of course we thought, this is a miracle, and, we're believing this is heaven and this and that. Well, needless to say, there was a point in time where I started to get scared. And I know this was God speaking to me. It was like, what if this is not what I think it is? What if this is not what we think it is? And I started to, the song played in my car called Adam and Eve, and it kept playing, and then it would play. And I thought, what is this? If this isn't like a song just plays, and then another song and a different song. This was, it played, and then it played. And I kept thinking, I was like, why is this playing? This is weird. It's repeating. And I thought, it's the serpent. And I was driving home when this happened, and I literally heard, it's the devil. And I was terrified. I was like, what? No, I called my friends. I'm like, I'm with Jesus. Like, this is Jesus. I'm going to heaven. And there were more messages like that came through where God was speaking to me, like, girl, this is not what you think it is. And luckily, I have a good Christian friend. I have several of them, a couple of them, but I had one that really knew the Bible. And her and I got together, and she said, Chris, this is against the God. This is read Leviticus. It's in the Bible. God says you cannot speak to your dead ones. And she was telling me about this, and I was like, what? I didn't know this. So she had invited me to go to church. So we had planned that. But in this process, somewhere along this process where I was starting to figure out, ooh, this is not what I thought it was, I started getting attacked. So instead of this like touching my body, it started attacking me. It attacked me in different ways, and one of them was sexually. I was, basically assaulted by something I couldn't see. And there was nothing I could do to stop it. And it was horrible. It's like something that you would see in a horror movie, only this was real and it was happening to me. And, I think at that point I started praying, and I started to read my Bible. And I went, the night before I planned to go to church with my really good friend. I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and there was this moment, I felt like death. I mean, I felt ill, I felt weak, and I just thought, oh no, this is really gonna happen. And it was a moment that occurred. It was sort of like, what's it gonna be? And in that moment, I was like, no, God, you are in charge. This is, I knew something was wrong. I knew it was wrong. And I got up, I went to church the next day. My friend did the salvation prayer. I did the salvation prayer with my friend. There was an elder there at the church who prayed over me, and she said, you know that seeing mediums and this astrology, this is a sin, and God warns about this in the Bible. And I said, I did not know that. I said, but I do now. And after that, everything changed. It was a whole new world that basically started in that moment. And it wasn't an easy one. It's been 6 months of me going through a deliverance process. But I will tell you this, that God literally reached down his hand that night and pulled me up out of a pit of hell. And I have never experienced such love and such mercy and such grace and such healing as I have the last 6 months. And, I was awakened to a new life. And I'm just going to finish reading what I wrote. I was awakened into a new life, one centered on love, forgiveness, healing, correction, and protection. Everything started to look differently. My relationships, my behavior, my priorities, my discernment of what was good and not good all changed. I couldn't swear anymore. I couldn't watch movies with, a lot of swearing or sex scenes. I could not. It was like, I couldn't stand it. Unhealthy relationships were removed from my life. And I started to see how many things about my life and my behavior needed an overhaul. One of them was I would have a glass of wine, sometimes 2, every single night. And I knew it was a problem. I don't think anybody else would have thought, but it bothered me. There's alcoholism in my family. And it was started, these are the things that God does when you invite him into your life. I knew it. He was on me about it. It was just like this thing. and I was putting away some chips in the cabinet where I store my wine and stored my wine. And I just heard, come to me, you don't need this. And the next day, I think it was the next day, I'm not sure. Shortly after that, I gave it up. And I thought, I don't know how I'm going to do this. But you know what? I didn't have to. God did it for me. I didn't have to go to treatment. I didn't have to I just literally, it was like, I thought, how am I going to get through the night not doing this? And a friend calls, another friend calls, and another friend calls. And next thing you know, my nights were filled with time with really good friends. And I could tell you many other things like that God just came in, and it was like, okay, we're going to work on this. He brought new people into my life to help me navigate this new way of living. He changed my desires and corrected them to be ones that were good for me and in accordance with His perfect will. My unhealthy habits and behaviors became unappealing to me and were replaced with healthy ones. My priorities changed, with God becoming first and everything else second. I began caring more for others instead of being so selfish, and the things that used to be important, my home, material things, my body image, my glass of wine, my career, me, were not so important. This was a whole new way of living, and it was incredible. I had always obsessed about my body image and feeling like I had to be perfect. And when God entered my life, I learned that I was fearfully and wonderfully made. Just how He made me. And that's scripture. For the first time in my life, I felt loved, accepted, and protected in a way that is hard to describe. I felt secure and anchored to something unshakable and stronger than anything you could possibly imagine, which is what happens when you become a child of God. It hasn't been an easy journey, but the most rewarding one. Letting go of the things that had given me a false sense of comfort for decades was sometimes a battle. I had plenty of discussions with God, pleading, whining, complaining, literally crying, like literally, I was crying like a baby, about whether or not this thing needed to go or why I couldn't have my glass of wine. Fortunately, He has endless patience. This statement that I read in one of my devotional books sums it up perfectly. One night I was having one of those arguments about why something couldn't be in my life anymore. And the devotional said something to this effect. Have you learned nothing, O stubborn, rebellious child? Return to me and trust me. In the end, I obeyed Him because He saved me. He saved me from what was a literal nightmare that ultimately could have cost me my life. It was depressing. I felt extremely depressed during the time period when all of this was going on. It cost me my marriage. Granted, we had a lot of problems, but this was definitely the impetus. It just really honed in on the infidelity that had occurred. And so I left because of this situation. And I know that in that moment, God saved me. And the thing that I just want people to know is that these things are real. And I used to think these things were just like, it's a diagnostic tool. It's healing, like getting a massage. No, it's not. It's spiritual. It is spiritual, and it talks about it in the Bible. And I didn't know the Bible, and that's why I was caught off guard. And I see a lot of people right now that are Christians that are engaging in these things, and they don't know that the Bible speaks to this, and it does. It talks that Satan presents himself as an angel of light, and that's so that he can draw you in. And his But that's not what he wants. He wants to steal, kill, and destroy. But he can't advertise himself as the murderous, lying, evil that he is. He advertises himself as healing, and he takes things that God created and he hijacks them and he twists them and turns them into his own lies. And it will cost something. Now, it may not be what happened to me, but I've heard stories of things like, oh, you're supposed to be married to this person, or, you're really not married to the right person. Then people start questioning and looking for other things. It could be alcohol, it could be, gambling, all different kinds of things that Satan tempts us with. And, Satan is in the world. Lucifer was an angel who wanted to be like God, and God threw him out along with a third of the angels. And where did he throw them? Here, they're in the world. They're around, and they're just, it says in the Bible, I think it's Peter, he's roaming around, just looking for someone. I'm butchering. I'm making a mess of scripture, but he's looking for someone to devour. And so he takes our weaknesses and, tries to get us to lean into these things that are bad. It's sin at the end of the day, which is why God has his commandments. It's not to just make us, feel bad or just because. It's because these are things that can hurt us. And I learned that very, in a way that is just shocking. And, it's like the consequence. It was a red line. I crossed some red line with my rebellion, and a red line, that nearly cost me my life, physical and eternal. So in the end, when I was having sort of some of these discussions with God, I obeyed him. I gave him what was rightfully his. He saved me, and I owed my life, physical and eternal, to him. And more important than that, I loved him beyond anything I could possibly imagine. And that love means that everything that I have and everything I'm going to do for the rest of my life is going to be about him and for him.
As I look back on this road I've traveled, I see so many times he's carried me through. And if there's one thing that I've learned in this life, my Redeemer is faithful and true. My Redeemer is faithful and true. Everything he has said he will do. Every morning his mercies are new. My Redeemer is faithful and true. My heart rejoices when I read the promise. I'm preparing for you. I know someday I'll see my Lord face to face, 'cause my Redeemer is faithful and true. My Redeemer is faithful and true. Everything he has said he will do. Every morning his mercies are new. My Redeemer is faithful and true. And in every situation
His love for me. When I lack the understanding, He gives more grace to me.
My Redeemer is faithful and true. Everything He has said He will do. Every morning His mercies are new. My Redeemer is faithful and true. Jesus is faithful and true.
That was Is Faithful and True by Fountain View Academy. What do you think of that story that the lady shared? Pure from the heart. I couldn't bear the thought to edit. I usually edit things down. This is just her heart pouring out her love for God and what He did to save her. She's a new woman. Any comments, Donna?
Well, I just think it's very interesting that kind of fits in with Sabbath school about God putting His law in our hearts and the pathway, because God was sanctifying her along the way, saying, okay, we're going to work on this next. And He was removing things from her life that were sins and things that prevented her from closeness with Him. So He just kept making her more and more free.
I was looking kind of at, if she knew about State of the Dead, she would have been spared all this. We need to share our special messages that God's given us. It's not for us only, it's for everybody. And look, she tried the cultic practice because there was another Christian doing it. I mean, is it Christian witch, Christian medium? I don't think so. She didn't know better. And again, I just so thankful that God pulled her out of there. He was able to see her sincere heart and guide her back into freedom again. I'm going to keep saying this, but half of Adventists do New Age practices, not realizing what it's going to possibly do to them. And I took my own survey in an Adventist church. And I asked, how many of you have actually seen a manifestation of Satan or his spirits around? 50%. That's a lot. We know Satan is real. We've experienced it. And yet we're on commitment. I think one other thing totally impresses me as well, and this one makes me, there's no way I could think I can do it on my own when I think of something like this, that Satan is better than artificial intelligence. 20 years after we die, he knows what our favorite topping was on our pizzas. He knows how we like our feet rubbed. He knows what makes us angry. He knows what our weak points are. He knows how to totally visualize us to other people on this planet when we're dead and counterfeit us in all our feelings and all our pet words and the way we move, the way we stutter. Satan and his evil angels have made a study of each one of us. Shouldn't we make a study of Jesus? Let's pray. God in heaven, this is serious stuff. We're in a battleground. And Lord, everything that we've been talking about and studying, you are the answer to every mess up we've had. But you're offering us more than that, Lord. You're offering us a life with you continually without getting entrapped by Satan, the New Age counterfeit. Satan wants control of everybody's thinking at the end of the world. Lord, we want to give our minds and our hearts to you. As we go through these New Age things, Lord, over the next few weeks, please impress upon us how wonderful it is to be with you compared to the potential of the world's greatness offered to these Hollywood people. It's nothing compared to the happiness and peace to come with you. Lord, I want to pray for Jay. I saw he came online to our online sanctuary today just before the sermon started. Lord, I want to pray for him because his father's funeral was just a few days ago. I'm very sick. And Lord, I'm sure you're crying for him. You love every one of us. We're all your kids. I'm asking, Lord, that with Jay's father gone, that you be Jay's father all the way and fill in for him. But I'm also asking, Lord, that you live your fatherhood to Jay through the other men, myself included, in worship connection, so that Jay can feel his father's love, meaning your love, and be comforted for his physical father here. In thy name, amen. I wish you a good Sabbath. Please invite your friends to come. I will be posting this service online within the next hour. So happy Sabbath. Love Jesus. Be happy. Bye-bye.